1 and 2. Let's do 3. I is true, J, oh, I was doing that backwards. I is false, and J is true. So I have false, then true, which is true, okay? And H on this line is true, so I end up with true, then true, which is true, okay? And I'm crossing out the stuff that's no longer relevant, right? I'm just leaving the stuff that's still operative, as it were. I and J on line, oops, I'm on line 3. I is false and J is true. So false, then true is true. H on this line is true, but it's not H, so it's false. So false or true is true. So the left-hand side is true, the right-hand side is true. True if and only if true is true, okay? So we figured out line 3. Let's go to line 4. I, then J. False, then false is true. Okay. And H on line 4 is true, so we end up with this true, then true, which is true. So let's figure out this side over here. I is false on this, and J is false. So we have false, then false, which is true, okay? And H on this line is true, but we have not H, so we have a false. So false or true is true. So I have to do this final calculation. True if and only if true, which is true. Okay, so far everything has turned out true. Okay, now line 5, I then J. I is true and J is true. True then true is true. And H is assumed false on this one. So we have false then true, which is true. Okay, so we figured out the left side. Let's go over here. I, then J. True, then true is true. H on this line is false, but we have a not H, which makes it true. So we have true or true, which is true. Okay, so now the final thing is true if and only if true, which is true. Okay, so let's go to line 6. We're getting close to done. True, then false. I is true, J is false. True, then false is false. H is false. So we have false, then false, which is true. Okay, so let me calculate this over here. I, then J. So we have true, then false, which is false. Okay, not H. H is false, so not H is true. So we end up with true or false, which is true. Okay, so I have true if and only if true, which is true. Okay. Line 7, I, then J. False, then true. False, then true is true. Okay, we have H. H over here is false, so we have false, then true, which is true. Okay, so now I need to do this side. I, then J. False, then true. False, then true is true. And we have not H. H is false, so not H is true. So we end up with true or true, which is true. So final calculation, true if and only if true is true. Okay, one line left. And everything here is false. So we have false, then false, which is true. And H is false, but we have this. False, then true. False, then true is true. Okay, so now I have to go over here. I is false, J is false. False, then false is true. And H is false, so not H is true. So we have true or true, which is true. Okay? And so the final calculation is true if and only if true, which is true. Okay? So there's the final column, it's always true. Okay? Now, we talked about different kinds of statements, okay? And we talked about statements that were always true for every possible interpretation, which this one is. It's true for every possible interpretation. What do we call those kinds of statements? Right. Always true, that's a tautology. Okay, so this is a tautology, okay? But we also said, you know, it might be the case that it turns out to always be false. What would we call it? Self-contradictory. Self-contradictory. Right? And then we also have the possibility of some true and some false. So if you have one, at least one of each, it's called contingent, right? Okay. All right. So on the quiz and on a test, you'll be asked to calculate something like this, and then you'll be asked to classify it as either a tautology, self-contradictory, or contingent. Now, it's very easy to make a mistake along the way with these calculations, right? A small mistake. So there is partial credit. So first thing I'm looking for is, did you get the right final column? If you get the right final column, that's half credit, right? And then the question is, did you get the right interpretation? If you get the right interpretation, then you get the rest of the credit. Does everybody understand that? Let's suppose you made a mistake calculating this stuff. You can see you can easily make a mistake. And so your final column is wrong. Well, you're going to miss half the points. But if your interpretation of your final column is correct based on your incorrect final column, you get half credit. Does everybody understand that? Let's suppose, I mean, this is always true, but let's suppose you got false here, and so you rightly said, looking at your final column, there's some truths and there's one false, so that makes it contingent, right? Well, you'd be wrong about what the final column is supposed to be, but you got the interpretation right, so you're going to get half credit. Does everybody understand that? Okay. 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 So, would you like to do another one of these? Or is this pretty self-explanatory? Yeah, we're good? Okay. All right. So, 3.4, that was just larger problems. The next kind of thing that we did was to, and this is 3.6, is to compare two statements, okay? And so let's do some problems here, okay? And when we said, well, statements could be logically equivalent, they could be logically contradictory, or they could be consistent, or they could be inconsistent, right? So let's do some like that. And so I'm going to do number 7 from section 3.6. Number 7 from 3.6. So 7, we have D, F, and Z as our statement constants. D, F, and Z. we have Z and F then D, Z and F then D. And we have not, and then it goes Z then F then D. Okay. All right, so I've already got this filled out. And so what we're going to do is compare the final result for this statement with the final result for that statement. So you should figure out what the main logical operator is, and it's the horseshoe on this one. And over here, it's the negation, okay? All right, so let's just do this one all the way down. F and Z, on line 1, F and Z are true, so we have true and true is true, and D is true, so we have true, then true, which is true, okay? So I'm gonna keep going down, working this one, okay. Z and F, we have, on this line, Z is false and F is true, so we have false and true, which is false, okay? And D on this line is true, so a final calculation is false, then true, which is true, okay? So now I'm on line 3, Z and F. Z is true, F is false, so let's do the and. True and false is false, okay? And D on this line is true, false, then true is true. Okay. So let's go to line 4, Z and F. We have false and false, which is false, okay?